I know this congregation and the other churches of the Driftless Ministry like to share meals. Potluck, steak fries, pancake breakfast, that rock corn thing that I'm looking forward to, desserts, ice cream socials. I believe that Methodist church functions all go hand in hand with food. Where two or more are gathered, there is a casserole. Maybe this tradition of gathering together actually goes back to this time on the shores of the Sea of Galilee, although I don't think I'd be thrilled to bring salad for 5,000. But the miracle, this miracle of Christ, is usually one that comes up first when you say, what did Christ do? I mean, it's right up there with turning water into wine and raising Lazarus from the dead. The feeding of the 5,000, and that was 5,000 men, because remember, only men counted. If there was just one wife and one child, I mean, that's still a lot of people, right? But this particular miracle is the only miracle of Christ that is told in all four Gospels. And each of the Gospel writers thought it was important enough to include this significant event. The compassion of Jesus is absolutely clear in each writer's telling of the story. The disciples have just returned from their first mission, and they're full of stories for Jesus. And I know from my experience in Israel last fall that walking around this part of Israel is very rough terrain. They would have been tired from their travels. So Jesus is trying to find a quiet spot for them for reflection. But the crowds who saw Jesus heal and heard his teachings, they were compelled to follow. And Jesus' compassion for them is so great. He sees people as sheep without a shepherd, and he welcomes them. So each of the gospel writers gives the same details for how Jesus goes about feeding the people. He has the crowd sit down in the grass. He takes the bread and the fish offered by the boy. He gives thanks. He breaks the bread, and the disciples distribute it. And everyone eats and is satisfied, and 12 baskets of leftovers are collected. Now, those are the basic facts. But each of the gospel writers also puts what we would say is a different spin on the sequence. Matthew is clear that the people are not our problem. Let them fend for themselves. Let them go to the villages and buy food for themselves. Mark focuses on the financial liability, and yes, it's mentioned here in John too, but in Mark, the emphasis is on giving to these people would diminish the disciples' ministry somehow. Luke looks at the logistics of managing the crowd not only with food, but with their lodging as well. Only in John do the disciples not tell Jesus to send the crowd away. In this version, there's a little bit more dialogue. Jesus asks Philip for some ideas. And what would you do if the Son of God said, how are we going to feed these people? Andrew does the inventory and at least finds a place to start with the loaves and the fish. Just a small gift from a small boy. Each of these approaches to the feeding of the 5,000 hungry souls, it just has so much to teach us. Because we come to Jesus with our problems, and Jesus welcomes that. But too often our approach is to say, okay, Jesus, I've got this thing, and I just need you to do something about it, and here's what I want you to do. There's a big hungry crowd in front of us, or a financial crisis, or a broken relationship, and we tell Jesus to fix the problem by sending the crowd away because we don't have the resources to fix the need. Or take away the bills we created, or mend the relationship that we have hurt or neglected. When we approach Jesus in this way, we usually feel overwhelmed, defensive, sarcastic, maybe even ashamed, any number of other strong feelings, because we aren't listening for the voice of Jesus. We're too busy telling him how we think he should handle our problem. Of course, we can't meet the challenges of our life on our own. No, we don't have the necessary resources to respond on our own to whatever it is that we're facing. We just can't do it alone. And oh, Jesus longs for these conversations with us. to have us respond with offering him what we do have, just like the young boy did, even though we need to realize that what we do have is inadequate. And then to rely on Jesus to provide not only the rest of what we need, but a plan and a way for things to unfold. When we have Jesus, we have enough. Jesus fully satisfies. This week I came across some stories of kids who made a difference. Kids with few resources or skills, but with a desire and a passion to do something remarkable. Like a 6-year-old boy who, for 2 years, since he was 4, he's been going with his mom to the Humane Society, where she would take pictures of animals to be adopted. He suggested instead it would be a good idea to make videos. So the boy gets with the dog or the cat and describes the personality of the animal and demonstrates how the animal interacts with kids. Now, you can imagine it's this cute kid, cute young boy, and a boy and a dog. Oh my gosh, are you kidding? The animals he promotes are always rapidly adopted. And he and his mom now provide a transport service for animals from high-kill shelters to greater care facilities. And so far they've saved 750 dogs and cats. And then there's 8-year-old Kelsey, who really wanted to do something to make a difference. And the grown-ups around her said, that's a good idea, but you need to wait until you're bigger to do something. But she didn't want to wait. She saw immediate needs, people to feed and yards to clean. And one Sunday, a missionary came to their church and was talking about needs in a country far away. And he said, for $1 a month, you can provide 10 meals for people. She said, I can do that. And so for months and even years, she brought her offerings to church to support people halfway around the world who she'd never met. And she prayed for those people. And of course, not all the stories are from far away. Right here, our own Jenna. She's been steadfast in her love of God for many, many years. Following the storms a couple of years ago, I understand that she delivered care bags to those who were affected by the floods so that each person could have a flashlight and some personal care items.
Each child.
Each child. Thank you. And she would babysit to allow the adults to do the more complex and more challenging tasks of cleaning up and so forth. And now that she's older, she is a cheerful kitchen worker at every church event. She stands up for what is right in front of others at school. She's not afraid to share her excitement about being involved with church and loving the Lord. And she was recognized for her beautiful spirit at our annual conference this year. So what do these have in common? They feature young people and youth, children, yes. But these are just people without any real resources or special skills or talents. Just enthusiasm and caring and a desire to do good. They were all willing to start with a small gift of time and caring and thinking about the outcome rather than the obstacles. A couple of fish, some bread. No matter how small the gift or how large the task before us, Jesus knows the whole story and has a plan for what can be done. Jesus knows that a small gift can have a huge impact, like a stone in a small pool of water has waves and waves of ripples. Okay, there are a lot of interpretations about what really happened that day by the water at the Sea of Galilee. Was it really a supernatural miracle that by Jesus' touch the small boy's lunch was multiplied and amplified so that it fed thousands of people? Would it have been as much or even more of a miracle if those who were gathered that day were inspired by the things that Jesus had taught and inspired by the boy's generosity, and they offered anything that they had with them and shared it generously so that everyone's hunger was satisfied. Maybe the miracle of that day was the spirit of generosity that wrapped around the hearts of the people, that they shared their limited resources with strangers. Would you do that? Would you share with strangers? Selfishness isn't new. Maybe we're more aware of it today, maybe not. But we focus on accumulating things. We hold tight to what is ours. But selfishness was there at the Sea of Galilee too. Traveling in the desert was unpredictable. Food was not available. There were no McDonald's on every road. You needed to be prepared for delays or changes in the weather. And the robe that you wore even was made with a special pocket inside the sleeve to hold the supplies, a slice of bread, something that you might need for the journey. But let's hear this story as a vivid reminder that in Jesus' presence, there is always more than enough. With Jesus, we have enough of what we need, enough space, enough kindness, enough love, enough. And that lesson by itself might be sufficient. But Jesus adds to this lesson, to this miracle, with something that we probably would have dismissed. With great intention, Jesus cares for the fragments following the feast. He sees that the abundance needs to persist. There's a feast that remains in the fragments. We might think the marvel of the story is that there was enough food for everyone, but for Jesus, enough for the meal was not enough for the lesson. Because Jesus always sees more. He gives attention to what was left behind. He cares about what's been tossed aside. And yes, we can give a lot of theological significance that there were 12 baskets of fragments, the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 disciples. Christ casts his circle of care around the fragments too. He cares about what is broken and in pieces. He gathers them up. It's a sign of the wholeness he can see, a foretaste of the banquet to come. Ever feel like a fragment? Like a piece of who you used to be? Maybe just incomplete? Sure. But Christ loves us even as fragments and gathers us up with care. And yes, even our smallest gift offered generously in love. Our smile. Our happiness. Our welcoming spirit. All of those things are used by Christ to benefit the world, and especially Christ uses our small gifts to benefit us too. So in faith, let us trust ourselves to the one who knows the end from the beginning, who knows not only our problems but also knows our hearts. All Christ wants from us is for us to trust him, to love him, and to allow him to work his will even in the fragments of our lives. Amen. Amen.